tactical for a little bit and talk about, the subprime situation, because, there's been, I mean, the subprime market's gradually expanded quite a bit over the last several years. And at the same time, there's, the banks are tightening up and rates are going up. So with all those changes, how has that affected your approach to finding opportunities to monetize in subprime?
Yeah, so our current lender, our top lender right now is actually a third-party lender, which is great. A lot of that has to do with the rep. His name's Jude. He's awesome. He comes in here all the time. It's just, again, the relationship building. So that's why he's got a lot of our contracts, and they also buy those people that need help, who have poor credit and whatnot. But I think honestly, that is an area of opportunity for us, because like you said, the banks are kind of pulling back, but just figuring out, getting, like the COVID time kind of made us a little lazy. I remember when I was on the desk, it was like during COVID, but prior to COVID too. And these like subprime deals, you would work your freaking tail off to try to get someone approved, and you'd switch them to whatever car and you'd make it happen. And it's like now, I think that we aren't doing that quite as much, maybe because the way the used car market is, but it is still challenging, because these people, this is why I would love to start a buy here, pay here, because sometimes the banks are just not going to be able to help people. And there's plenty of people who need transportation and need help. And it's definitely a challenging thing, because like you said, like I don't have control over if a bank approves this person or not. And they're either going to do it or they're not. But I have the knowledge and skill set to put them on the right vehicle, which was always one of my favorite things to do. It's kind of like a puzzle, you're like, okay, which car in that inventory is going to be exactly what this bank's going to approve based on this guideline, this money down, whatever. I miss that part of the business. I'm kind of just overseeing things now, but I think it's definitely a huge opportunity for dealers, and like looking at your markets and saying, hey, look, is this opportunity there? Because more than likely it is. I think a lot of people have that in their backyards and just aren't capitalizing on it.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the relationship building with the rep. Does that allow you to influence the decisions from the bank?
So he, in a way, yes, because it's like, for instance, I had a friend of mine who I sent his contract to them, and he immediately, as soon as I sent that contract over, Jude called me and he's like, hey, tell me about this deal. What do you need from me? Blah, blah, blah. And he was just like on top of it just immediately. And sometimes he's able to like help with the fee or help with the down payment. Like he works the deal, versus these bigger banks, they just have a auto responder and not another person on the phone. And just to, talk about that too, with where our whole like world is going, I think more and more people are wanting a real live person to talk to versus robot or person who's got a, whatever. So it just shows you really like how important relationships are. Like I know COVID was such a weird time because you were away from people, but people were meant to be together. Like we were meant to interact. We were meant to be face to face. We were meant to see people, because I can tell you this, our guys send contracts to the people who come to our stores. They don't send them to the people who don't show up. So relationships are everything.
That's great. And I hope that speaks to those limiting beliefs out there for any finance managers or dealers or managers who have finance managers that have that limiting belief, like, well, we can't control it. It's up to the banks. I'm like, you can't control it. You're right, but you can influence it. And if you develop those relationships, and really, it could be a two-way street, right? The reps, there's great reps that put their best foot forward. And then I think there's great finance managers that reach out and establish those relationships too. And that's such a good point about finding the smaller banks that you can really work with, because it's all of a sudden like, now you're back in the 1980s with that bank, right? Mm-hmm. Not in the world, and then you can use the same dynamic to kind of help each other grow. So that's really good insights there. And you said that you were thinking about buy here, pay here. Do you guys offer any sort of in-house financing? And if so, do you have short-term leases or long-term loans or any sort of credit coaching as a customer retention strategy?
So we don't currently have like an in-house financing department. It's definitely something I'd like to explore soon. I think my goal time for that to start is in like a year. I wrote it down somewhere. I was really convincing my dad. I finally got him to go to training with me. It's a long story. But that's something I would definitely want to do, because I see the opportunity. I see how many people we have to turn away because we can't get them bought. And those people need cars. Like, they need transportation. They're paying rental companies or whatever, taking the crappy public transportation system we have in our area. And so they just need help. And that's what I want to do, is try to help those people as much as I can. So I think starting that sometime in the next year is how we're going to do it.
That's cool. That's cool, Brooke. One of my dealers, dealer groups, and this goes, I always say consistent coaching compounds, success and growth. One of my dealers, this program started out, when I first started working with them probably 5-6 years ago, we had coached on, they had a big Hispanic community and market, and they had a couple Hispanic speaking employees, and they had a comfort zone challenge, and they didn't want to be all over social media. So we coached them through that. Next thing you know, we ended up starting this called Tier 4 marketing program, Tier 4 to the salespeople marketing themselves. So he took a percentage, and I'm sharing this with you because I think it might be something that you could tap into when you start getting into that in-house finance. Yeah. But so he started building this following around the Hispanic community as a market. And then that led to, and then the next thing was basically, so we got this big following of Hispanic people and people without, they have TIN numbers, right? So hard to finance through traditional lending. And that led to, well, what if we could do some in-house financing? And that led to, so we created this lease to own program. So it's an in-house program, and now that's called dealer controlled leasing. Basically, they do in-house leases. They get to sell people a car twice within 24 months. There's the upfront lease, and then there's the buyout between 18 and 24 months, because there's a credit repair element in there. So
nice.
It's really, the average person's score goes up like 150 points. You talk about impacting lives. They've got 30 or 40 testimonial videos of customers talking about. It's really cool. I
would love that. Yeah, send that over to me, because that's something I definitely want to do.